Lance?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay, good evening. This is our city council meeting, and today's January 23rd, and I'm going to call the meeting to order at this point and ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chris, could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Malama?
Here.
Shippers?
Here.
Spolman? Here. Stevens?
Here.
Mayor Barnett?
Here. Thank you very much. We are going to start out the evening's meeting, and we're going to provide a moment of silence in remembrance of Officer William Knitz. And if anyone in the council wants to say anything at this point before we do that, real quickly, as I would offer that opportunity. And if not, I will just indicate that I was a friend, and many people that were in the city were good friends of Officer William Knitz, and as well as our officers who worked side by side with him, and that this is a sad and tremendous loss for our community, our police force, and the general safety of our community. Having a seasoned officer like William Knitz in our community was an honor to have, and we will miss him greatly. And with that, I did want to also share my appreciation for everyone in the community, all the police agencies, public safety agencies, fire, from all over the state that had come and acknowledged his passing with a wonderful funeral, and the staff that helped put that together. Tony Crawford, one of our officers in particular, appeared to have maybe a lead role in that, and that our condolences certainly go out to the Knitz family, Cindy, Matt, and Bill, as well as their other relatives. So with that, at this point, I'd ask everyone to join us in a moment of silence in remembrance of Officer William Knitz. Okay, thank you for doing so. I'm going to provide a continuation of our agenda tonight. We have the approval of the agenda up first for us. So let's take a look at that if we would. Are there going to be any changes in our agenda for this evening, Mr. Pecha?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Stevens is going to...
Okay. Councilmember Stevens.
I was going to request that we add to the agenda the replacement of the police canine officer, also known as Bo, the police dog that we've had, and unfortunately the police department lost two this week, one being Bo, the police dog, and just adding on the agenda the item of the replacement of the police canine.
Okay. Where would you like to see that added?
We can make that item A under the city manager's report, if you wish.
Okay. A new A, and we'll move the others down to B, C, and D.
Works for me. Works for me.
Works for you. Okay. So there's a modification to our agenda this evening, not on the agenda, but added at this point, and
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the replacement of the canine for the police department.
okay, there's a motion on the table for the amended agenda. Is there support as well?
Support? Oops.
Go ahead.
Okay, I guess we'll give that to Councilmember Stevens, Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion about the agenda? Hearing none. Chris, could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Spolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Malama?
Yes.
Mayor Barnett?
Yes. Motion carried. We have an agenda amended slightly. Next up are our public comments. And public comments, we ask that you restrict your comment time to 3 minutes, if at all possible. And if you need additional time, you can talk to us, but we'd like you to do that out of courtesy and respect to everyone that attends the meeting as well as watches the meeting at home. Anyone wishing at this point to come forward for the public comment period of our meeting, please do so at this time. I'm seeing and hearing no one come forward. We're going to proceed to the consent agenda. And we have a couple of items on there, our city council minutes from the regular meeting on December 17th, and also a request from the Cadillac Symphony Orchestra to hang a banner over Mitchell Street from February 18th through the 25th, 2013. Could we have a motion on our consent agenda, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda as given.
Okay.
Support.
There's a motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. Chris, could we please have a roll call again?
Councilmember Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Barnett.
Yes. Motion carried. Next up is our proclamations. It's an is tonight because we do have one proclamation, and it is related with cystic fibrosis. Council member and Mayor Pro Tem Art Stevens is with us tonight and present and has been a driving force. Would you like to just talk a little bit about what's going on before I get into the presentation of the proclamation? Councilmember Stevens. And maybe about the dinner and some of the history in your family.
Sure. The proclamation, we've done this other years as well when there was a walk for fundraiser for cystic fibrosis, but this year is a dinner dance on February 9th at Fox Hill here in Cadillac, and the funds go to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And through the proclamation, when you read it, there'll be a lot of information that comes out, and we do have quite a few youth in the area, them or their families that have youth that are affected by it.
Okay.
And we actually have some members here tonight.
Okay, here in the crowd tonight attending, I believe, will be Parker Cowley. I think I saw Parker out there. Is he here tonight? We'll have you come up in a second. Sarah Cowley, and looks like Mom, Sue Mellema, and Tom Maxwell all in the house tonight, so thank you for coming. And actually, I want to come around, and why don't everyone come up? Art, would you like to join us in this as well? For those of you that don't know, Art's nephew, I believe, was your nephew? Cousin. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Aging you a little bit. If possible. Nathan Maxwell was someone who was stricken in our community years ago. You wouldn't mind coming forward?
Can you just read close to that microphone, then they'll be able to hear it on TV?
Okay, let's do that.
That would be
You mind
nice,
coming
I
up?
think.
In fact, young man's here. Come on up here. Just perhaps. Okay, I'm going to try to stay close to the. This is Parker, everyone, and Mom Sarah. How are you doing tonight, Parker? He feels like I do coming to meetings. I get somebody to hug sometimes. And I'll bet you, Sarah, your mom as well. Okay, and Tom Maxwell, good to see you here. Thank you for doing what you've done all the years for Cystic Fibrosis Town and in your community. Are you still coaching basketball by chance?
No, I'm getting too old and I'll learn it.
I know the feeling. And Sue, we know you from somebody on our council. And
Yes.
we'll let the folks at home do the math.
Oh.
See if they can figure out any other Malamas in the house. But we're glad to have Parker and Sarah here, Sue and Tom as well, and I'd like to read this, if I could, at this point. It's a proclamation, and it indicates as follows. Whereas cystic fibrosis is the #1 genetic killer of children and young adults in this country, and approximately 30,000 people in the United States have cystic fibrosis. Whereas Dale Nathan Maxwell was a resident of the city of Cadillac, a graduate of Cadillac High School, and an inspiration to all the efforts on a local basis to educate and raise funds for cystic fibrosis research. And whereas Allie Bannon, Parker Cowley, Morgan Daly, Kelsey Daly, and Andrew Johns are children in the Cadillac area who have cystic fibrosis. And whereas on February 9th, 2013 at 6 p.m. at the Fox Hill Event Center in Cadillac, Michigan, there will be the 12th annual 65 Roses Dinner Dance to raise funds for cystic fibrosis research. Whereas volunteers, including Susan Mellema, Todd Cross, Tim Kelly, and the folks that we have up here that aren't mentioned in the proclamation, they are inspiring others by their dedication to helping the children and adults with cystic fibrosis. Now therefore be it resolved that I, William S. Barnett, Mayor of the City of Cadillac, Michigan, do hereby recognize February 9th, 2013 as the 12th annual 65 Roses Dinner Dance and urge the citizens of Cadillac to join in the fight to cure cystic fibrosis. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Cadillac, Michigan to be affixed this 23rd day of January 2013, and it's signed with my signature, which is not legible, William S. Barnett, Mayor of the City of Cadillac, Michigan, and I got my signature from my dad, who was at I'm going to give this to you, if I could, at this time. Is there anything you'd like to share with us? Well, all right. All right. Thank you for your efforts, and thank the young man for coming along and being our guest this evening. Mr. Maxwell or Ms. Mellema, would you like to give us any comments tonight? This is your chance to balance out the other member in the House that's named Mellema, or say anything you'd like to about the. Now you're the chairperson this
Yes.
year? Okay.
Yes.
Would you like to speak on behalf of the committee?
I would really like to encourage people to get involved. As you know, the proceeds go to Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for research and support to the families. You can attend the event, and you can contact me for tickets, or Brinks Downtown has tickets. Another way you can help is we have sponsorships, and all of the proceeds from sponsorships would go to the research. And the third one, think about this. We need auction items, and it's kind of fun to put baskets together that would have a certain theme. So, you know, that's a way community members can also help with research. We auction those off. Some of the items are a silent auction item, and some of them are live auction.
And so could you give a phone number by chance, just for the public?
Yes, my number is 775-3701, so contact me. I would love my phone to be ringing. That would be great.
Councilmember Stevens, any final remarks?
They did perfect.
They did. Okay. Sarah, Tom, and Sue, thanks for coming. And Parker, I know how you're feeling, buddy. Thank you for coming, and that's your first proclamation. And thanks for coming and receiving it on behalf of the other children in our community.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody.
We could start on the time.
Okay. First up tonight is seems like first up tonight for our business portion of our meeting is a public hearing. It's a public hearing to adopt a resolution to establish a corridor improvement authority in the area commonly known as the Cadillac West Resort District. We have some folks from the Cadillac West area here. Great to have you here. I'm going to formally open the public hearing at this point. And before we get to the public and hear what the public might like to say, we are going to ask the staff to sort of set the table a little bit and provide some background of how we got to this point. Maybe.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. We are here this evening for the public hearing to establish the Corridor Improvement Authority. We have talked about this concept on several occasions, and in short, it's essentially similar to a downtown development authority, whereas you're establishing a tax increment financing district in order to provide a funding mechanism for future infrastructure-related improvements, whether they're hardscape or softscape alike. One clarification for City Council this evening. The city attorney advised me that per statute, we need to hold 60 days following the public hearing before the actual adoption of the resolution. So at the conclusion of tonight's public hearing, we are not able, or the council will not be able to formally adopt the resolution, but rather we'll have to bring it back to you within the time frame that the law stipulates. Without any further delay, Jerry Adams, our Community Development Director, has prepared some slides this evening to help frame the whole concept. Jerry?
Okay. Thank you. Let's have Jerry come up before we open it up to the public, get some more backdrop on this. How are you doing this evening, Jerry?
Good, thank you. Okay, just got a few slides. I may skip through some of these rather quickly. Okay. You've been somewhat exposed to the concept of a corridor improvement authority some months ago. We did talk about this, and so there's going to be some repetition with respect to the slides. I'd like to give a little bit of history, and then we'll actually get into the actual authority itself and talk about what it would mean to the area. As the slide says, what brought us to this point. And essentially, some years ago, it's been several years ago, a group of Cadillac West business owners, primarily property owners, started to talk about their area in terms of things that were happening, some of the issues and concerns that they saw occurring. And I just jotted down a few of the things that were being discussed. This is 3 or 4 years ago. They looked at the fact that there seemed to be a bit of a decline in tourism. Maybe the businesses weren't capturing as much through traffic, particularly along M115 as they have in the past, issues with traffic congestion, as well as a host of other items. And I think one of the big concerns was the fact that the area seemed to be aging, maturing, and didn't have some of the embellishments, you might say, that they felt, particularly streetscaping, that they felt would be or is important to the area. So essentially, based on those concerns, they did form what was known as a Cadillac West Resort District Association. It was formed. It's had several names, but it was a nonprofit organization consisting primarily of Cadillac West business owners, some of which are here tonight. And the participation in that organization was voluntary. Folks essentially just came together. They did appoint a board, had bylaws, but again, all of the folks serving on the association were volunteers. One of the biggest concerns, obviously, in tackling some of these issues was the need to obtain dollars, funds. And so they looked at a variety of ways in which to fund the activities, and essentially, at least initially, they funded their projects or the efforts that they were going through dues. That is, dues were assigned to the various businesses as well as others, and also did some fundraising events. You may recall a few years ago the Cadillac West Fest. Quite popular it was, and well attended and so forth. Essentially, the organization achieved a lot of positive recognition, but essentially they just weren't able to capture sufficient funds to institute the physical enhancements that they wanted to see occur. And what were some of those enhancements? Again, these are just a few of the projects that were talked about. The need for wayfinding signs to help people navigate the area, beautification, particularly of the M115 causeway, landscaping, streetscaping, you might say, lighting and so forth. They even talked about maybe a tourism center being located somewhere in the area. The need to improve pedestrian crossings across M115 and M55. There's a lot of pedestrian activity in the area, a lot of which is generated from Mitchell State Park, and there is a safe pedestrian crossing if you want to go under the highway, but throughout the length of the corridors, it's somewhat difficult or tricky at times. They looked at the possibility maybe of attracting a new hotel, a convention center, or rehabbing one of the existing facilities to serve that purpose. Looked at traffic calming, how do we expand our marketing efforts, and so forth. In order to do this, again, they knew they needed funding. So Again, a lot of effort went into trying to identify how do we raise funds above and beyond what we've already done. The first option they thought was, well, why don't we develop or put in place a downtown development authority similar to what's occurred in downtown Cadillac, so to speak. Unfortunately, the state statute only permits one DDA in a unit of government in the city in this case. So that was out. They looked at the possibility of state and federal grants, had some meetings, in fact, with different agencies. The issue there was, number one, they may have some projects in mind, but they lacked sufficient funds to do the upfront design work that would be needed to even begin to tackle those grant applications. And perhaps more importantly, a lot of the grant applications required a local match, 10, 20, 30 or more %. Thousands of dollars. The dollars just weren't there. And then lastly, who would administer the program? Who's going to fill out the grant applications and administer those grants if, in fact, they were obtained? They continued to look at additional events, which they knew would require volunteers, but they also knew the profits, at best, would be minimal. So they also looked at dues, gifts, donations, a whole host of potential funding options. And unfortunately, the options just, at least in their minds, and quite frankly in our minds too as staff, helping them from time to time, just weren't working. One of the tools, however, that did surface as a possibility for the district was a tool known as a Cadillac Improvement Authority. It is an economic development tool. It is, as indicated by the first slide, there's a state statute associated with this, and it's very similar to a downtown development authority. And as the slide indicates, it's a tool that is largely funded, or that allows the use of what we call tax increment financing to generate dollars. Those are local property tax dollars that stay within the district. Those are dollars, by the way, that are generated not off of the existing development, but off of new development or appreciation in property values. Also, this tool, as indicated, was very similar to the DDA in terms of how it works, how it operates. So there's a lot of familiarity with it. So, again, it was looked at as a real possibility. Before I get into the slide, we did have some meetings in the Cadillac West area looking at the Corridor Improvement Authority. Those meetings, we had two, as I recall. They were well received by the folks that attended. In terms of why form an authority, we kind of talked about that, but number of reasons. Again, business and property owners, they're looking for a tool by which they and the city can focus future planning and development efforts on the enhancement of both M115 and M55, much like we've done along Mitchell Street in downtown Cadillac. They're hopeful that by implementing various public projects, be it streetscaping, pathways, signage, and so forth, that it will, in fact, help act as a catalyst for new economic growth. They would like to see the redevelopment of private properties, and again, they're hoping that the authority would encourage that. And one of the most important aspects about all of this is their goal is to really create a resurgence in the area's reputation as a quality resort location, kind of bring it back to where it was some years ago. In terms of a Corridor Improvement Authority, again, similar to an EDA, they may get involved in a lot of different kinds of projects. They can prepare and analyze the market conditions of the district. What are we all about? Where are we headed? They can develop long-range plans for the physical improvement of the district. And very importantly, they can make physical improvements, be they roads, fences, sidewalks, water and sewer system, landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. Again, similar to what the DDA does in the downtown. Let's skip that one. Funding sources. The primary funding source for Corridor Improvement Authority is essentially through tax increment financing, again, similar to what happens with the DDA. They can continue to accept grants, donations, and gifts, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to do so if the authority is formed. Although they don't own any property or buildings, the authority per se, because we don't have an authority, they can sell buildings, they can lease buildings, and so forth. With your approval, they can also issue special assessments, and also, again, with your approval, they can issue bonds. Again, similar to what happens with the DDA. Some of the things they can't do, and this is what I think excites people a little bit. This is not an organization that's out there to raise taxes to fund its activities. The statute doesn't give them the authority to raise taxes. They can't condemn properties unless granted that power by the city council to do so. I can't think of any properties right now they would want to condemn, but nonetheless, this isn't something they can do by right. And very importantly, they can't fund a project unless it's part of a development plan, which they will have to prepare. And that plan will ultimately have to receive approval from the city council after a public hearing. So city council, in fact, will be intimately involved in this organization if, in fact, it's formed. 6 steps to forming it, and we're part of that tonight. You've done a couple of these already. Some months ago, you passed a resolution, or some weeks ago, to establish an authority. You adopted that, and you set a date for the public hearing, which you're holding tonight. There was a public notification requirement. All the property owners within the district were notified in writing. We did a couple of things this time. Not only did we send a copy of the notice, the hearing notice, but we also sent a several-page explanation, you might say, of what the district is, what it's all about, how it generates its dollars. We also sent a copy of a one-pager from the state of Michigan, just again describing the district. We also sent a copy of the area map that would be associated with the district, as well as the legal description. Wanted to give folks the opportunity to learn as much as they could about the district before tonight's public hearing. You're going to be holding a public hearing tonight, and as I think it was either Mike or Marcus mentioned, essentially you can't approve this until at least 60 days has elapsed. That's to give certain bodies, governmental bodies, the opportunity to comment if they so want to do so. But that 60 days will start after tonight. In terms of the public hearing, we also, in addition to putting notices in the newspaper and on the city's website, I'm not sure they're still out there, but we did go out and we posted 20-some notices throughout the district on power poles and at Rick's car wash. Is it still there, Rick? Yeah. Okay, and so forth. So weather was kind of nasty, so I'm not sure how many of those notices lasted. And then the last 3 steps that ultimately you'll be involved with is that following the 60 days, you'll adopt an ordinance or a resolution actually establishing the authority. That ordinance will be published, a resolution, and then there will be a board similar to a DDA board, and it will be that board's responsibility to put together a development plan, which again will come back to you. Don't know if you can see that well, but the district boundaries, proposed district boundaries, at this point in time, they're all located within the city. The authority does have you can have a collaborative effort with adjoining municipalities. In other words, the authority can include adjoining municipalities. Insofar as what we're doing tonight, however, we're dealing just with properties within the city, and the proposed district essentially allows us to go, according to the statute, we can go up to 500 feet on either side of the corridors that are involved here. In this case, we're looking at the M115 corridor and the M55 corridor, and we've extended it out the area of the district to within 500 feet, the area that's kind of denoted in, I guess, it's kind of a blue. 500 feet of the rights-of-way of those corridors. Quite frankly, it takes up most of Cadillac West, at least within the city, and it's where the business properties are located. It's okay to also include residential properties within the district, again, as long as we stay within the parameters of the law. Just a last slide here, I think. I want to just some cautions for everybody. It will take time. If this is approved, it will take time to experience significant physical improvement, enhancement. We're going to have to raise some dollars, and the quickest way to raise dollars, at least through tax increment financing, is to experience new development or to experience enhanced development of existing structures, for example, in the district. And that may take some time. It's going to require an investment of city staff The district is looking to have city staff work with them, the board, I should say, that would be formed, and some resources. And it's, as indicated, it's going to call for leadership, commitment, and patience. It's taken a long time for Cadillac West to get where it is, and it's just not going to turn around necessarily overnight. But it will turn around, and I think it will turn around in a very positive way. With that, I'll open up to any questions. There are a number of folks here tonight. I don't know if they want to speak or not, from the Cadillac West area, many of whom have served on the Cadillac West board that we talked about, the one that is still in existence. And to my understanding, that would be disbanded if this particular authority was put into place. So.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jerry. I'm going to go ahead and have a seat and relax for a second, and you might be back. The public hearing is for the proposed adoption of a resolution to establish a corridor improvement authority in the area commonly known as Cadillac West Resort District. The public hearing is ongoing. We've heard from a couple of staff members, and at this point, we'd like to invite the public to come up and tell us what they'd like us to know about this as well. We are not going to vote on this tonight, but we would certainly appreciate any input and or celebration for at least a step forward, because I know these folks have patiently waited, I would say maybe 5 years for this day, or at least something, and where they can sink their teeth into, and I appreciate your patience. But anyone wishing to come forward at this point to share any thoughts about the improvement of Cadillac West and that corridor, and attempts to liven it and beautify the area that we need to have as a showpiece of our community, I feel. But public comment sort of is open. It's also known as public hearing, so come on up and give it to us if you'd like. And if you don't, Wayne, Mr. Fox, would you mind coming up, give us your name and address, and any thoughts you'd like to share with us with regard to this project?
Thank you very much. This improvement is sorely needed, and my wife and I and the Cadillac Sands are behind this 100%. I think it would enhance Cadillac West immensely. I have a concern with the grand vision. I have a concern that the David and Goliath factor. If by chance the grand vision diverts traffic across Boone Road rather than going through 115, I think that would sorely affect our ability to make money in that Cadillac West. And the dollars and the political aspirations of that Boone Road, whether it be the big dogs, whether it's Myers or Walmart or MC Sports or whatever, versus the Cadillac Sands and the other little small mom and pop operations that currently have that. Right now we depend on that 115, and we depend on it dearly. We pick up a lot of transit traffic. We pick up a lot of folks that come in through there that might want to rent my snowmobiles, that might want to come and eat in our restaurant or play in our nightclub, whatever the case may be. I really have a concern about that grand vision, and I'm not quite sure how to address it. And Jerry has been very forthright with me, and he keeps me posted as best he can, and kudos for Jerry for doing that. He keeps me in the loop all the time. I want this to succeed, but I don't want to have it succeed to the point where we build it and we hope they come, but they don't come because they're diverted across that Boone Road bypass. Everything that I read about the corridor improvement program makes sense to me. We sorely need it. We have older buildings there. Ann and I invest every year to try to build our property up and be the best it can be. I just don't want to lose it to the grand vision, and I don't know how to address that other than to stay on top of it, I guess. Okay. Thank you very much.
Wayne Fox, thanks for coming up from Cadillac Sands Resort. Anyone else wishing to speak? The public hearing is wide open for the public's input at this point. Thank you, Wayne, for coming forward again. Anyone else wishing to share tonight? I guess I'll have a question. Maybe Jerry, would you mind coming back up and discussing the grand vision that he's referring to, or I'm hoping that's not a vision that the city has.
The grand vision is it's a multi-county program that includes Wexford County, Grand Traverse County, and there are 5 or 6 counties in northwest Michigan. And it's a planning project that was started several years ago and is continuing, and I think what Wayne is referring to is part of the Grand Vision program is looking at how to improve the movement of traffic. How do we get traffic moving in and through the region? And there's nothing about the Grand Vision, at least so far, that's been totally solidified, but one of the options that has been looked at in terms of the movement of traffic is, for example, traffic that's heading north via 131. Right now, if you want to go, let's say, to Cabernet, well, that's a bad, Crystal Mountain, okay, that's an easier one. Right now, you would get off most likely at 115 right there south of the city of Cadillac and shoot up 115. You'd go past the Sands, for example, and on up to Crystal Mountain. A lot of, some folks are saying, well, why not, instead of getting off at south of Cadillac at the 115 exit, let's go on up to Boone Road. Boone Road between the freeway and Mitchell is already developed into a 5-lane system. And the thought is extend or improve Boone Road from Mitchell all the way to 115 into a 5-lane system. So traffic would then go up the freeway to Boone Road, shoot Boone Road west to 115, and then head north, bypassing Cadillac West. Conversely, if you're heading south from up north, you'd come down 115 to Boone Road, and then head east to the 131 freeway, and then head south to Grand Rapids, Detroit, Chicago, and so forth. And this particular project, the Corridor Improvement Association, we haven't, or they haven't, that's not been addressed, discussed. We don't have an association so far. I know the current Resort District Board, again, who some of these folks are members, in the past they have had some discussion, but that's the kind of issue that an authority could address, could tackle, and could come together with hopefully some type of consensus and work with local officials in terms of, do we want to utilize Boone Road in that way in the future, or do we want to continue to bring traffic all the way through 115, and if so, what sort of improvements might we need? So this would be a tool not presently available that, if it is available, could be very useful, similar to what the DDA does with MDOT, working in concert with other local and state organizations to try to solve problems that are of concern to local property and business owners.
Okay, is there something the city could take, formal action, or maybe we have a connection? To me, it's ridiculous to pour more traffic on Boone Road in the first place.
I think
safety reasons, let alone the commercial.
We are part of the Grand Vision. We attend a number of the Grand Vision meetings, and so we're maintaining or remaining aware. I think in terms of what we might do in the future is have some meetings with the Wexford County Road Commission, for example, discuss their thoughts on this, and also maybe ultimately have some discussions, meetings with the folks from the Grand Vision, from the Council of Governments, again, to discuss our concerns and our thoughts on this so that people know how we feel about it.
Okay, I suppose there's a freeway that goes there, and there's about 5 lanes for about a mile, maybe?
Well, there is right now. Again, the thought is you would continue, similar to how Boone Road has been improved between Mitchell and 131, the thought is we would do a similar type of improvement, or we shouldn't say we, but a similar type of improvement would be completed between Mitchell and 115. So Boone Road, in essence, would become a 5-lane highway, if that concept were to be instituted in some time in the future.
Thank you.
Just wanted to add a little cherry on top that as conversation and dialogue should progress, certainly the city council could take a position, pass a resolution of support, of no support, however it gets drafted out, addressing the traffic configuration and where we would like it to stay, essentially. So that could be something that comes forward accordingly in time.
Yeah, maybe the 5-lane highway could be 115. That probably should have been a long time ago. Okay, thanks for explaining that to everybody. And I'm still going to give the public one last chance, one last shot here at us with some information or thoughts if anyone else wants to talk. Otherwise, I'm closing the public hearing. No one coming forward, so I will close the public hearing formally. We are not going to take action. Is there any need to have discussion at this point, Mr. Pecha or Mr. Homier or council? Anyone wish to comment on this so far?
I would have some questions for Mr. Adams.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. Jerry?
How did I come back up?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead, Councilmember.
Probably, when you made the comment that we couldn't vote on it today because of the law that requires 60 days, and that is a comment period for some other units of government?
Mike and I were talking about this earlier. We notified all of the taxing units of government, state and local, of the possibility of this being implemented as a tax increment finance type of district, and it does give them the opportunity to comment accordingly. They're also aware of the fact that it's a public hearing tonight. I should mention we've not received any communications since the public notices were put out from any of the taxing jurisdictions. I did receive one telephone call from a resident of the area. She just was interested, was neither for or against, just was interested. Chris also received a telephone call too, just of local interest. Other than that, there haven't been any communications from anyone.
I'm trying to figure out what the cons would be, and I'm not hearing any, but I think there are probably some out there. Is there a potential to redirect future dollars to other entities like schools? Is that part of this?
They have an opportunity to bow out, so to speak. That's why they're notified. The amount of dollars that would be, let's say, absorbed by the district and not the other taxing jurisdictions would be pretty minuscule. I don't know the exact amount, by the way. But again, one of the reasons for the notification process, the notification period, is to make those folks aware of what's going on and give them the opportunity to comment. One of the things, too, that the if the authority is formed, that they will be doing is developing a financing plan, so to speak. And that plan will look at what sort of impact will this have on other taxing jurisdictions, and ultimately you're going to have to approve that plan. So you may decide that no, we don't. That's too much of an impact, so we want you to reduce it, or you may decide that it's fine. I think you're going to find it's pretty limited.
And then the other question I had that's related to that, and I think you've already answered that, is you said that one of the one of the things that they would be able to do once this is approved is have the authority to assess a special assessment or to assign a special assessment.
They could.
Council has to approve that.
That's
also.
Correct. Right. Mm-hmm.
Has there been any discussion related to that?
No. Just it's only been mentioned that it's a tool.
Okay.
But no. And they may not want to.
Okay.
And if something like that were to happen, most likely it would come in the form of a recommendation from the board after there had been significant discussion with property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions?
Just a quick question referring to the 60-day period. Is that also an opportunity if somebody listening tonight wanted to give their input on it? Is that still open? Is that a part of the 60-day process as well?
I'll defer that to Mike.
It's not really dictated by statute, except to the extent that the statute says not less than 60 days following the public hearing, the city can adopt an ordinance. whether you choose to accept those comments within that 60-day period is entirely up to you. It's not necessarily required your public hearing will be ended, but to the extent people want to send communication in, written, come into public comment or public comment at the following meetings and discuss it, they certainly have that opportunity. You can take that into account.
And if we receive anything, we'll certainly let council know.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Adams?
For me, no.
Anyone else from council before I sit them down and have them come back up?
The only thing I feel personally, the short time I've been on council, is I feel the Cadillac West has been underutilized, and it's an asset that we really haven't taken a look at and really looked on how we could better utilize that. And it's tremendous amount of traffic going through there, and it could be a real asset to the community. So I'm really pleased with the action that you're taking.
Okay. Spend a few minutes out on that causeway at any time of the year and see what the beauty is and why anyone would be steering traffic away from that area, which is our jewel of our city. I think we should. I would have asked staff to consider, subject to council saying otherwise, that we come up with some sort of action from our council to send the strongest message possible to maintain that as a throughway for which is historic, traditional, and also one of the most beautiful areas of Cadillac for the public that comes through here to see what we have. It would be hiding a tremendous asset to have traffic diverted from Cadillac West. There's other ways to deal with what might be occasional backups, which I think are beneficial in some ways because people slow down and actually take a second look at what's out there. We'd like to have that be, in my opinion, a little nicer looking. It certainly needs it and is in need of some sort of funding. My little editorial there. Anything else, Jerry?
No.
Okay. Any council?
Just a thank you to Mr. Adams as well as the mayor. I know when you say 5 years, I remember you two were involved in meetings back then, and just thank you for the time you guys have put in.
No, it's not a problem. The citizens are standing up and then working with us and have been patient and have had a lot of good ideas as a group. So it was a pleasure to see this move forward through that time and now with some actual steps. And we're hoping that we can keep that a lively area and commercially beneficial and a fun place for people to go. That's our fun spot. Okay, the hearing is closed. Any other comment from our fellow council members? We're all good with our discussion tonight. We're not going to vote. We'll see this down the road. And I would ask council or the staff to consider whatever strong message is necessary to divert a plan that might look good on paper.
My comment to that, I was going to save it for later, but since we've been talking about it during this conversation, is that maybe we could contact the Transportation Committee of the Grand Vision and ask them to come to one of our future council meetings and do a presentation on any discussion that they've been having in consideration about transportation routes around the Cadillac area. And then we could hear from them whether or not that is something that's being strongly considered.
Okay, that's a good idea. Okay, we are going to close the number 5 on our agenda, which was the public hearing. We've had that, and thank you all for coming that have participated or listened tonight, and good luck. Hopefully this will move forward in a few short months. Thanks. All right, communications. And I'm going to go to Chris on that. Our clerk is in the house tonight. How are you? Again, still hanging in over there? All right, let her rip.
We have a request from the AMVETS Post 110 for use of the city parking lot west of the AMVETS building, use of the city parking lot on the west side of Lake Street, and closure of Lake Street between West Cass and West Chapin Streets on February 5th, 2013 from 3 to 4 p.m. for the Wirtz Warriors Snowmobile Group. And we have Matt McGarrah from the AMVETS here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Matt, do you want to come up and share any thoughts about the use of the lot and promote what you have to say tonight? We're happy to hear you. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here tonight. Short notice, I know. I just found out like 2 weeks ago that they decided to add us to their schedule. I met with Ken, who's the CEO of Wirtz Warrior, back in October at the AMVETS conference in Grayling. We talked about putting us on the schedule for next year, but as it works out, the night of the 5th, that group is spending the night at McGuire's. So they asked if they could be added to come out to our post. We've been raising a little bit of money for them, which is for Special Olympics, because they fund a great deal of the Special Olympics. Wirtz Warriors have been around for 32 years. Great cause. We've really tried to increase now the money we're raising for them in this short period of time. It's roughly going to bring in 60 snowmobiles. I got to have room for 4 tractor trailers. I got to have room for 10 support vehicles with trailers. And we're going to have anywhere from 80 to 100 people showing up. And they're going to show up between 3 and 4 o'clock. They're riding snowmobiles, so you don't know how that works. And they're going to be around for about an hour for a check presentation that we're going to give them. We do have a formal request coming to you, Mayor, to have you stop out there at that time if you'd like. You should be getting that shortly. It's just a great event for the whole community. Like I say, they're stopping to see us, but I know they're spending the night at McGuire's. But to bring that large of a group in, I need a place to put them, which is the parking lot directly behind the AMVETS is normally not plowed, which we asked for that not to be plowed. We asked for that street, Lake Street, to be closed there so I can just bring them tractor trailers in and put them right on the road for like an hour. That's what they're going to be at our post for. And the support vehicles I can put in the parking lot in between Lake Street and Lake Cadillac. Any questions, concerns? I don't know what else. This is my first time coming to a city council meeting here dealing with this, so you're going to see me in the near future. I know we played some phone tag at another event we have coming up.
Yep.
But I think it's just a great opportunity for us to get on the calendar. Next year, they put out a brochure every year that states where they're going. This is given out throughout the entire state. And on here they have everybody listed on all their stops and whatnot. Next year we'll be actually on that as an official stop for them, which is just, and hopefully we have snow. So it's just a great idea. And the whole tractor trailer thing is, if for whatever reason we don't have snow, them tractor trailers are designed, all the snowmobiles go inside the tractor trailers. They still show up. All the support vehicles are now transporting everybody by vehicle instead of snowmobile, and they show up. Regardless, they're going to be here, and we want to give some money to Special Olympics.
All right, thank you, Matt. Thanks for your service to the country, our country as well, and your service to the AMVETS Post 110.
Thank you.
You are the new commander?
I am the first vice commander.
Okay. Sorry about
Doug Hall is still.
Doug Hall, I'm probably in trouble now, yeah.
No, that's all right. Doug's doing a good job up there. Me and him are working well together, and this is just something we got going on. And the big event we kind of talked on the phone about this summer with honoring some Purple Heart recipients and whatnot, we'll get into in the next month or two. You'll see me back in here on that.
Okay. Matt, thanks for coming tonight. Anybody with any questions for Matt about the Wirtz Warriors event and what we're proposing tonight? I don't hear any.
Would it be,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the time of day is like school is getting out, and where you're asking for the closure, I don't know what the staff thinks, but is there a reason that it couldn't be closed, the place where Lake Street is most frequently closed? Because to go out onto Main Street from Chapin, there's no kind of light there. I think it would be kind of tricky with people getting out of school right at that time and getting to other places. So
go ahead. Add a little bit to that, and I think the question is more maybe to Matt. If we've had a conversation with Cadillac Public Schools, is that a bus route? Because that would be definitely something that needed to be communicated.
Right, it is. The factories get out at that time and the school does as well, so it could create some bottlenecks. I mean, if it is approved, we'll get traffic through there. It just might cause some delays, but...
Would it work to have it in that place in front of the pavilion? What is that between Cass and Harris? It's a little walk over, kitty corner to the AMVETS.
That would be no issue to us to have that parked, to put the semis and the vehicles in. The snowmobiles would, obviously park in the parking lot that's not plowed. I would just, whatever works the best and best for traffic, I mean, we're fine with that. They'll have no issue there if that works better for you folks. It's just the time frame is, they're on that schedule and we're kind of stuck with when they said they're going to show up.
I don't believe there's any conflict, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at the police, but NESF is not going to be in that area during that time?
No.
Their event's over, right?
I thought it was Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday, yes.
Okay,
So
all
that's all
right.
done
yeah.
on
So
Sunday.
it should be okay without any other conflicts?
It's just where the closure is concerns me because it routes the traffic out onto Main Street at Chapin, and then there's no place. I don't know.
Well, they have to go around to Mitchell Street, and they would have to be communicated, and it might affect the library also.
Yeah.
You could also close it all the way down to the four-way stop of Lake and
South?
South,
The library would close that.
Shuts off the library.
except
and
for
that's
local
after
traffic.
That's what we try to keep it as short as we could to, affect as little as possible. But if you feel the area in front of the parking pavilion is a better area to close down, we're more than, just let me know who to talk to and what to do. And
Okay,
I'm sure staff could figure
could
it out.
the staff has certainly heard your concerns, and there could be validity there. We'd like them to look at that. Marcus, is that something we could do? We could pass this with that opening?
Yes.
Possible
Yes.
modification,
Yes.
as staff sees fit?
And it sounds like I'm getting the nod over there that, yeah, staff is good with that.
Okay,
I appreciate the short time frame because of the day of the week and what's happening during those hours.
okay. Matt, I think everyone's good with the question and answers. Thanks for
Okay.
your presentation, and good luck with your event.
thank you very much.
Try to get around my schedule if you'd like to have me present.
Thank you. I'll make sure you get the invitation out to you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to turn this over to council at this time.
So how should we word this if we're going to leave it up to staff?
We're okay with changing it.
To Harris and,
Yeah.
between Harris and Chapin,
Okay.
or Cass and Harris. I'll make a motion that we approve the use of the city parking lot west of the AMVETS building, also using the city parking lot on the west side of Lake Street, and that we close Lake Street between West Cass and West Harris Street on February 5th from 3 to 4 p.m. for the Wirtz Warrior Snowmobile Group and their events taking place there.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion from council? I think this group has usually been coming through Lake City. Has it been in Lake City? Are they still going to Lake City this year?
Yes, sir, they'll be out there, and then when they leave from here on the 6th, they'll actually be heading up to Mesick, AMVETS Post 110, or 120,
All
for
right.
another presentation up there.
Awesome.
And I don't know how the actual procedure goes, but that time frame, I hope we can be a little bit, they're on snowmobiles, so I can't say definitely that they're going to arrive exactly at 3 o'clock and leave exactly at 4 o'clock. Hopefully we can work that a little bit.
Yep,
All right, thank you.
we're real flexible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we have a motion and support. Any other comments? Hearing none. Chris, could we please have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Helena?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Mayor Barnett?
Yes, motion carried. Chris, looks like you have a couple more.
We have a request from Jeff Harding of the Manton Cross Country Organization to close Lake Street between Harris and Cass, between Harris and Cass Streets on June 29th from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. for a Lake Cadillac Team Marathon. And I believe Jeff is here.
Hi, Jeff, come on up. Give us your...
Thank you for letting us do our race here last year. I know one of the big concerns last year was, what is Manton High School cross-country team doing a fundraiser in Cadillac? And I think the events of the year are a great story of how close our communities really are. one of my friends and cross-country grandparents is Jerry Sinkle, and we have our cross-country camp out on at Fife Lake at his place, and he was the one that encouraged me to do this fundraiser. With budget cuts in the school and everything, never seems like there's never enough funds to go around. My wife is a nurse at the district health department here in Cadillac, and she had been interviewed by Dr. Elmore for a nursing position, and when Dr. Elmore saw the race, she contacted my wife, and they started talking, and ended up, my wife invited their family out to our cross-country camp to talk to our kids about nutrition and eating more calories. And because the whole family was out there, Jason Elmore was out there, and things just got rolling, and I volunteered to time the race at the YMCA. That was the New Year's resolution run, and by being there, I was able to secure a couple race sponsors. We're going to be having, assuming that you approve this, chip timing for our races, as well as, I'm sorry, I just drew a blank. Doing chip timing as well as having just a bigger race. Last year was a success. We had about 65 runners. My biggest downfall was lack of advertising and knowledge that way. I would like to add an individual half marathon, an individual full marathon. The guy I hired for the timing system, he said, well, if we're there, let's get more events there. Let's get more runners there. 65 runners spread around Lake Cadillac is not very big. So I'm hoping that we can hit 200, 250 runners this year by adding the extra races. Closing down that section of Lake Street seems to be a popular theme here. We're good with just the small section. My main concern is pedestrians crossing back and forth. We had probably as many spectators there as we did runners. We had teams as far away as Port Huron come up. The cross-country kids stayed in a campground, and the adults stayed in a hotel. And we had a grandmother who had a walker crossing the street, and having that closed down was a big benefit for us. I know last year we'd promised to donate some money to a local group filling backpacks with food. We did donate $150. It's not as big as I was wanting it to be. Without our sponsors, technically we lost money on the run, but it did secure enough money for the chip timing, adding some nice features like that, and plan on doing that again, but I think probably the biggest thing that this race experience gave me was contact with the community and adding more events myself. I've also volunteered to time the, there's going to be a YMCA mini triathlon in May, and Jason Elmore picked the one weekend in my track season where I'm free, so had to do it for him.
All right.
Okay.
Jeff, thank you for your information. Probably don't go too far yet because we may have some questions, and I appreciate you doing this event and adding some more value to our community and healthy lifestyles as well. Anyone from council have any questions regarding Jeff's proposal here?
More comments, just two things. Thanks for bringing up a summer topic now with the temperature outside. And then you were right in your the write-up that you had about it's nice having the lake because most of those team marathons, they're spread out and you don't have it all gathered. It makes it a better event. But thank you too, because when you bring people to Cadillac, they're coming in our stores and they're staying at hotels and the campgrounds and all that too, so thank you.
Kind of a neat story. I had the team from Port Huron. We waited around to the last team to finish, and they wanted to go eat, so they went up to Shea Station, and they gave me their phone number, so when the last runner finished, I gave them a text. They came down from their lunch, received their medals, and were able to go on. Remember the big one I was most excited for was I just secured a sponsor that's going to certify the race distance. It's $45 per mile. And I said, come on, we're going around the lake 4 times. How many times are you going to roll the lake to know how far it is across? But by doing this, the race will be able to be used as a qualifier to things like the Boston, New York, Chicago. So then it really can be a large regional event. Last year, I was looking at it from a cross-country coach's viewpoint of, well, I want 4 guys running or 4 girls running, and they'll go around. No one has a personal best for 6.9 miles anyway. What's the difference? Well, I had enough marathoners give me advice and saying, move it down. So that way it's an exact distance, and then you'll actually get half marathoners, full marathoners. I would like to see this grow into an event with 1,000 or 2,000 runners. A lot of the events that I go to are much bigger than that. I take it one step at a time. 65 was a success because we didn't have any complaints. So I would like to see it at a couple hundred this year and keep growing from there.
Great. Sounds good to probably this board. Anyone else with any healthy remarks here?
I'll make a motion to approve the request of the Manton Cross Country Organization to close Lake Street between Harris and Cass on June 29th from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. for the Lake Cadillac Team Marathon.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Just thanks again, Jeff, for this opportunity to bring more people into Cadillac. Chris, could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Barnett?
Yes. Motion carried. Good job. All right, we're continuing with Chris and the communications. I had a feeling we had a commander in the house tonight.
We have the request from Richie Harris, Commander of the Sons of the American Legion, to place a banner at the boat launch on Chestnut Street for the annual Golf on the Ice event to be held on February 9th. And Richie's here.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, Commander Harris, would you mind coming forward? How are you doing?
Good. Good evening, you guys. I'm back again. We're doing our 22nd annual Golf on the Ice for Special Olympics. Unlike the Wirtz Warriors events, we donate all our money right here locally to our local Area 32 Special Olympics group, which the last 4 out of 5 years have been the gold medal state champions in basketball. Really like to receive our funding. We're here again asking that we can place our banner at the boat launch from noon till about 3 o'clock on Saturday, February the 9th.
Okay.
To help let people know where we are. And maybe again this year we can steal some of the motorcycle racers to come down and play golf in their off time, which happened last year.
Okay. I wonder what they'll use if they don't have golf carts, though.
They were content with walking. It wasn't real bad down there last year. Remember, we didn't have a lot of snow. We did have a lot of good ice.
Yeah.
Real happy for this cold weather right now, I'll tell you.
And you have a nice tournament with some awards and contest as well?
Yeah, we do a couple little different events off on the side as people are out there golfing. And then when we finish, we go back to the American Legion Post 94, downtown Cadillac. We do an award ceremony, and then we do a live auction. And like Sue Melima was saying, everybody's trying to drum up donations. It's tough this time of year, but everybody needs the help, and it's just a wonderful event. Last year, again, we were able to give them about $2,500, which helps them get around the state and get to their events. And I now happen to be living in the Lincoln School area, so I get to go walk over and see them practice on Saturday mornings and play some of their games. Just that happens to be one. Then in the afternoons, they bring in the floor hockey team. So it's been kind of nice for me to actually get to tie into some of the events and watch them.
Good. Well, thanks for promoting this event and for such a worthy cause.
Thank you.
Anything else you think we should need to know as we prepare to vote?
No, unless you'd like to move a nice lighted sign down there for me so we could really, attach with all the wonderful city funds that you have, you could.
Yeah, we're just rolling it.
Plug it right in the lake.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk to consumers for you. Maybe they're willing to join in. All right, thanks, Richie. I know that there are questions, but there may be. Anyone with a mulligan for Richie?
I think I'd just like to make a motion to approve the placement of a banner at the Chestnut Street boat launch for the annual Golf on the Ice event on February 9th, 2013.
Support.
Okay, this motion is in support. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Chris, could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama,
Yes.
Mayor Barnett.
Yes. Motion carried. Richie, thank you, Commander, for everything you do for the American Legion as well as the Sons of the American Legion.
Well, thank you for allowing us to have that, and I'd like to invite you all to come out and play a round of golf. We actually do set up a 9-hole golf course, so it's a fun way to spend a Saturday.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. It is so worth it. And thank you, Council, for passing that. Chris, looks like we have some appointments tonight. Could you bring these forward, please?
It is recommended that Art Stevens and Doug Melama be appointed to the Board of Review for a one-year term to expire January 7th, 2014.
I'll make that motion.
And I support it.
Congratulations. Hello there.
Well, I know that Councilmember Malamo would probably join in making sure you guys are aware this is a annual appointment, so if any of you want to do it, or if you want to do it and switch, that we definitely don't want to monopolize the
I would
position.
also like to thank council members Stevens and Melama for monopolizing this position. I know you do a great job there, not just because it's a difficult job, but I know you do a wonderful
It
job.
takes a lot of time, and I do appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate too.
All right. I was going to say, I'm sorry, there's no council input allowed on this one.
Too bad.
The more you talk about it, the more you may end up in that seat.
Yes.
Art, this has been something he's done since he came on the board in 2000, and some of us have had the time to do it, and I appreciate both of you, and I will thank you at this time, both of you, for not only how long you've been on there, Art, and the knowledge you've gotten from serving on there and the connection with the community, but Doug, who's also served as a alternate. So thanks for doing that, both of you. With that, we have a motion and support from this side of the table, pretty quick there. With that, Chris, we'd appreciate a roll call.
Councilmembers Bowman,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama,
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Barnett.
Yes, double yes, motion carried. And looks like we have one more.
It is recommended that Fred Osborne be appointed to the Cadillac Wexford Airport Authority for a 2-year term to expire February 7th, 2015. William Dumont did not wish to be reappointed.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Okay. Mr. Osborne is somewhat in the house. I see him.
Yes.
Peering through there.
You wish to say anything tonight? He's going to wave us off. That's pretty good. We could put him in parades. Okay.
All 5 fingers.
Any discussion? It's the last chance to
Thank you.
divert him elsewhere. Sounds like there's none. Could we have a roll call on this?
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnett.
Yes. Motion carried. Fred, thank you very much for your service. I've been in a plane with him. He's a very good pilot.
Different kind of pilot, huh?
He is a very good pilot, different than the pilot coming up, and not afraid to say hello to his friends from the sky sometimes that are living around the area in his own special way. Speaking of special ways and a special person, we have a very special person in the house tonight. And actually, he's got his MSA shirt on. I guess I'll let him get up and he can announce not only that, but also what he's here to talk about tonight, which is From Sea to Shining Sea, the motorcycle ride that the city supported and helped out last year. And I guess we're going to hear what's happening after we get a summary. And we had a little confusion with your appearance last time. Very glad to see you back here or here tonight, William Bradfield. Do you want to come forward and share your thoughts tonight? And you are, by the way, on the community spotlight tonight. And I guess I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, so you don't have to. That Bill, and I may have brought this up at a prior meeting, but Bill has been elected or selected by the Michigan Snowmobile Association as the Snowmobiler of the Year. And he hails from Hoxeyville and certainly has the passion of snowmobiling in his system and has turned that around not only for the Snowfest and the history of that, the chili cook-off, of which he's won more than a couple times. But your work in the snowmobile niche for our community has been amazing, appreciated. Hopefully, you're going to keep sticking around and doing what you've done to promote the sport in this area for many years to come. So congratulations on your award, and you can talk about that if you want, but I know you're here to give us a good update on the program we supported last year, and we're anxious to hear how it turned out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city manager, staff, and citizens that are here tonight. It was indeed an honor to get the award to Snowmobiler of the Year. There's about 300,000 snowmobilers in the state of Michigan. So when you get called up to the podium on Saturday night at the annual convention, and after they read off a number of different things that I've accomplished over the years, including the big Mishkanska ride, it was a real honor and a real thrill to have that honor, that award bestowed on me. And I always brag up that I'm from the city of Cadillac. When people ask me where I'm from, I don't say Hoxeyville, I say Cadillac. And the ride that we did last summer, there were a lot of similar things that we had with the original Mishkanska ride, which I love to look at that plaque every time I come in here and appreciate that you folks put that up there for us. But in the infancy stages of developing the Mishkanska ride, the comments that I heard almost everywhere I went giving presentations was, it's too big of a ride. You'll never be able to complete it. Half the people will turn around and come back home. You'll be lucky if you make it halfway. Well, Mishkanska proved to be the most dynamic snowmobile ride in the history of the sport and the biggest fundraiser for diabetes research ever. When we founded the program right here in the city of Cadillac, I'm also a member of the Cadillac Winter Warriors, and they endorsed the program in October of 2008. And we went forward, and we made it all the way to Alaska with 54 people, and 78 people made it on segment rides. 24 of them made segment rides. But there was so much in common with what people said about Mishkanska and this ride. They said, Bill, you're never going to be able to make a coast-to-coast ride on a snowmobile. You've gone too far. It's just not going to work. But when I got back from Alaska, it was 2010, the spring of 2010, I decided to convert that snowmobile, the same one I took to Alaska, into a three-wheel trike. And I did that. And when I first got it done, there were some problems that I had to address with it, especially overheating, but I wouldn't give up. We changed the capacity of the radiator. We actually got a car radiator underneath it right now, and the machine now performs just fantastic. We left the city of Cadillac on July 12th, and I've got to thank so many people, you, Mr. Mayor, for working with us on our board of directors, the city of Cadillac, for working with us and closing down the downtown area, all the wonderful people from the community that showed up. All the veterans groups were just super in helping us, and we were very proud on that morning when we took off that about 17 members that were riding with us were in the armed forces on active duty, and their commander heard about the Ride for Diabetes, and he knew it was in honor of all veterans of all wars, and he felt compelled to tell all the people in his company that had motorcycles, you will take 2 days off and you will ride with Bill Bradfield. So it was really nice that they did that. But we left Cadillac. It was a warm day. Our first stop was Toledo, Ohio, then Pennsylvania, then the Boston Harbor. And we got to the Boston Harbor. It was 103 degrees. We left the Boston Harbor. We were in a 2.5-hour traffic jam. And I'll tell you what, with the sun beating down on you at 103 degrees and you got semis rumbling all around you, it was really, really tough to handle. The next day we went to the 911 Memorial. When we were done there, and the people from Firehouse 10, that's the firehouse right next to where the first building collapsed on 911. They took us right inside the fire station. We had pictures with them. They talked to us about the event, and we talked to them about what we were doing. They were very supportive. We left New York. We got out on the expressway, another 2.5-hour traffic jam, over 100 degrees. The next stop was in D.C., and that was a planned stop to go to the Vietnam Wall. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I lost one of my best friends on July 6, 1967. And I thought of him many times, and I thought this would be a good time for me to have closure, to be able to say a few words at the wall where his name is inscribed. One of the people in our group called ahead, and we were greeted by a choir, a military choir, a military honor guard, a military chaplain. We had a wreath. We walked from a position about 100 yards away from the wall up to the wall, and as we proceeded to the wall, there were people all around us on both sides, and we were saying, please join us at the wall. We had a great ceremony at the wall. The chaplain said a prayer. I gave a short speech, and the bugler played taps for us, and I closed by telling the people that I appreciated them stopping and listening to what we had to say, and I asked them, in the future, whenever you see a veteran, man or woman, please go up to them and just shake their hand and say thank you. There were about 100 people there. When I closed, made that statement, they all got in line, single file, and they walked by all three of us, held out their hands, shook our hands, said thank you for your service. And that was very moving for me. When that was over with, we walked across the street. There was a little cafe there by the mall. We were all pretty hungry. We got our food, our sandwiches, we got it lined up, we put it on the counter, and a woman walked up to the counter, and I recognized her from being in the crowd, and she said, I would like to pay for all their lunches, and once again say thank you for what you did. So all along the trip, there were little things like this that happened that were just really touching. It made you feel like you're on a lot more than just a big, fun motorcycle ride. This has got a real meaning across America, and I was so glad that I started it in the city of Cadillac. And then when we pulled out of D.C., I swear, somebody had this planned, another 2.5-hour traffic jam. It was so hot that day, I think it was 106 degrees. And when we first started out on the trip, I didn't use my sunscreen, and my lips were all chapped and bleeding. And so while we were stopped on the expressway, I reached for my chapstick, I pulled the cap off, I went to put it on my lips, and it poured out of the tube. So I'll tell you, people, it was hot. By the time we got to that fourth day, every hour we would pull over with the motorcycles, and the chase vehicle would pull aside. The guy on the passenger side would jump out, run back, open the door, pull out the cooler full of ice water. And the system that we used for hydration was a half a bottle on your head and a half a bottle down the hatch. And we did that all the way across America. As everybody knows, that was the hottest summer, at least that I've ever heard of in my lifetime. So we proceeded. We went by the St. Louis Arch. We got on Route 66. We went through Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. In Arizona, we stopped at the Grand Canyon. We stopped in a little town called Williams. The Grand Canyon was not on the itinerary, but there were signs all over about it. And I asked the lady, so where is the Grand Canyon from here? She said, 50 miles up the road. So we had a meeting that night, and I said, hey, who wants to go to the Grand Canyon? Everybody said, let's do it. So I had a great time at the Grand Canyon. We left there. We went through, we stopped at Las Vegas. When we pulled into Las Vegas on July 26th at 4:30 in the afternoon, rush hour traffic, people on the streets were looking at that machine, just shaking their heads. When I stopped at a light, somebody yelled out, that can't be a snowmobile. And I turned and looked at him. I said, not only is it a snowmobile, but I rode it all the way here from Michigan. It was 111 degrees that afternoon when we pulled into Vegas. So all the naysayers that said, you know it's not going to work, you know you're going to have mechanical breakdowns, it's going to overheat. In the back of my mind, I was just a teeny bit skeptical, but I sure wouldn't say it before the ride. But it did make it. There was never a mechanical failure on the machine. We pulled out of Vegas. We went to the West Coast. We went to Frisco. Then we went north to Reno. From Reno, we went to a little town in Oregon. Then from Oregon, we went through Idaho. Then Idaho, we went north. and we went through Yellowstone Park, and that was kind of fun too. When we pulled up to the gate there, I've been in Yellowstone Park 5 times on snowmobiles over the years, and I pulled up and I could see the lady looking at it, and she wouldn't say anything. I said, "You're right, it's a snowmobile." I said, "How many have you had gone through this summer so far?" She said, "You are the first one ever." So we just had so much fun with that machine. We rode through Yellowstone Park. Then we went out the western side of Yellowstone, and that would have been Bighorn National Park in Wyoming, which is absolutely gorgeous country there too. We rode to the city of Cody. The next morning we were pulling out of Cody. We were about 20 miles out of town, and I looked in my mirror and I see the red and blue lights, and I'm thinking, oh boy, I wasn't paying attention to the speedometer. We get pulled over, and a police officer walks up to me. He says, "Do you know in our state that you're supposed to be running during the day with 2 headlights?" I said, "Yes, I do, and I thought I was." He said, I thought I only saw one." He said, "Would you mind turning the machine on?" I said, "No." I turned the machine on. "Oh, yeah, you do have 2 headlights." And then right away he said, "Is this a snowmobile? Do you mind if I take some pictures? Where did you drive this from?" So those are the kind of things that happened on the way that were just a lot of fun. We got out of Wyoming, and we got into South Dakota. We stopped at Mount Rushmore. We stopped in Deadwood, South Dakota. Going back, we had also gone through Yosemite Park in California. We made probably a dozen stops at national parks in one ride. As far as motorcycle rides go, it was a ride of a lifetime. The Mishkanska ride was a ride of a lifetime on snowmobiles, and this motorcycle ride ended up being the same thing. And we had, let's see, when we stopped in Sturgis, I got to say on that day, it was such a windy day. The flags that I had on the back of my snowmocycle, as I call it, I had to take them off because it was whipping the back end of the machine around like this. The wind blew so hard, it broke my windshield 2 times. And on that day, 2 motorcyclists were blown right off the road into the ditch and ended up being hospitalized. The fierce winds out there in the summertime, now if it's just this last summer, are just incredible. But we stayed at the Buffalo Chip Campground. And right next door is the Full Throttle Saloon. Maybe some of you have seen that program on television. They interviewed me 3 times because they were so fascinated with the snowmocycle, and they've been airing that for the last couple of weeks. So if you're up around 10 o'clock at night and you see it on there, you might want to wait and watch it. You'll see me talking about it. And it was so cool. When I pulled into the parking lot, there were probably 10,000 motorcycles. As I was getting off the machine, I got a tap on the shoulder, and I turned around and looked, and it was the owner. And he said, "Is that a snowmobile?" And I said, "Well, I kind of like to call it snowmocycle." He said, "Then it's converted from a snowmobile." I said, "That's what it is." He said, "Would you mind doing me a favor? Go right up on the hill in front of my bar. The TV cameras are there. I want them to interview you." I said, "Okay, I can do that." So I got in line. There was a bunch of Harleys and Hondas, big, beautiful motorcycles in front of me. Waited my turn. And as I pulled up, the person that was doing the interviewing was behind like a desk, like where Marcus is right now. And he's looking right at me, not at the machine. And he says to me, "So what makes your motorcycle unique?" And I couldn't help it. I started laughing. I stood up on the running boards. I said, "Look at it. It's a snowmobile on wheels." And he said, "Oh, my God, it is." He let me go on for 5 minutes. He came around from his desk. On the back of my machine, I had an American flag, a Michigan flag, a POW flag, and a Marine Corps flag. He came around, came up to me, giving me the bump. He said, "Semper Fi." Apparently he was a Marine also. And then he said, "I want you to do a second interview down the side of the hill here." Went down there and they did that. They took my name and cell number. At midnight that night, they called me and said, "Bill, we want you back tomorrow. We've never seen anything like this." I went back and they said, "You have the most unique motorcycle in all of Sturgis." And I'll tell you what, when we drove through town, it just, everybody stopped to look at it. It was just incredible. So we had a great time. We were honored by the Patriot Guard Riders from South Dakota. The owner of the Buffalo Chip is a Vietnam veteran like myself with diabetes from exposure to Agent Orange, just like me. He gave us our spot right in front where every motorcycle had to come in, and the spot he gave us, was enough room for my truck and 27-foot trailer and some tents. That spot, the cost was $4,000. He gave it to us free. He said, thank you for what you're doing. The Patriot Guards took us in. They said, Bill, we'd like to have you give a presentation when we raise a 30 by 50-foot flag. So we were honored everywhere. And the one thing that was really cool, when I pulled in to the Buffalo Chip, I saw a trailer, and it said Traveling Vietnam Wall on it. And I had an idea they would have it there. And as I pulled in, some guy comes charging over to me. He says, I know you. You're from Cadillac, Michigan. I said, oh, how'd you know that? He said, because there's only one machine like that, and I saw it last year, and that's where this wall was a year ago. So that was kind of cool, that connection there. And we had a fantastic time. We made a lot of new friends, a lot of good contacts. We raised $17,000. 11,000 of that was directly for diabetes research, 6,000 for diabetes awareness programs. We're looking at another trip this year. It's probably going to start right in Cadillac, and it's going to go right to Sturgis instead of to the East Coast. So it'll be a lot shorter ride. Some of the people on the ride will only be doing it about 10 days. They're going to go there and come back. But we think we're going to get a lot more riders because a lot of people will go to Sturgis if they don't have to go all the way to the East Coast. So our thanks once again go to the city of Cadillac, all the veterans groups that helped us out. Everybody did such a fantastic job. Through Bill's ideas and connections, we're working with the Career Training Center, Career Tech Center here in Cadillac. They are compiling 3,500 pictures and about 8 hours of video film. And I go there for a meeting once a week and sit there with the students and the instructor. Her name is Cammie Cook. And we're developing a video documentary of the ride. And the beginning of that video documentary of the ride will be right down here, downtown Cadillac, with the mayor giving the presentation. So we're going to be advertising the city of Cadillac again as the kickoff point, the birthplace of Mishkanska, and now the birthplace of From Sea to Shining Sea. I feel really, really good about what we've been doing. It's so rewarding to be able to raise money that can help other people and maybe even help me someday. But I could never do it alone. It's community pulling together to help us do this. It made all the difference in the world, and it will again in future rides. And as long as I'm around, I'll enjoy doing these kind of things, working with and for the city of Cadillac. So with that, if anybody has any questions about this crazy trip, please feel free to ask them.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Anyone from council have any discussion for Bill tonight? I think we're good. I want to thank you very much for your efforts to help raise money for diabetes research, and not only your Mishkanska, From Sea to Shining Sea, and everything you've done just for snowmobiling locally here with your snowmo cycle.
One last thing I'll throw at you, and it's not official yet. But I kind of like to, when I do big adventures like this, almost all the time somebody's telling me somebody's going to do something bigger. Your record's not going to stand. And this happened to me about right after we came back from Alaska. And the guy said it 2 or 3 times, and finally I thought of what I was going to say to him. I said, you know what, you're right. Somebody is going to beat my record. And you know something? He said, what's that? I said, I know who it is. How do you know that? I said, because it's going to be me. And when they gave me the award for Snowmobiler of the Year, part of that award is because you rode so many miles, and all other parts are you did good things, fundraisers for charities. There was somebody else that had maybe another 100 miles on a snowmobile in a winter. But they said, then we looked further into your application, and you put 3,000 miles on your snowmobile in the winter, but you rode a snowmobile in the summer with wheels on it, another 8,000 miles. So by far you have rode many more miles than any snowmobiler ever has in a given year. So it was quite an honor, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to continue enjoying it. And once again, thank you very much for all your help. I couldn't do it without you folks, and we'll keep on plugging away.
All right, Bill. Thanks for coming tonight and sharing, and good luck with
You're most welcome.
Round number 3. All right, we are to the city manager's report tonight, and we've got a new number A, letter A, actually, sorry. And it's replacing, or the proposed replacement of Bo, which we're sorry to see pass away. And our condolences to the city staff that worked so hard with this officer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the city council. Councilmember Stevens, did you want me to run through the memorandum really quick? Or?
It's up to you. I was just going to emphasize a few points from it.
Yeah, why don't you shoot?
As the mayor mentioned, not only did we lose an officer last week, but we also, the police department had a terrible week, or as some of them said, the worst ever since they've worked here. And one of those was the K-9 officer, Bo, and the discussion has come up that in the past it's been handled, most of it, a portion of it, through donations, which will definitely be happening, as well as a fund that the city already has that is designated for that. But the conversation came up that if they were waiting completely to get the donations ahead of time, that the process probably could get stalled for months. And there's a nice training that's taking place in February, and Lance Taylor that works with the dog is also, they've done interviews just like they do with any police officer, and they've actually went down and went through a process of a particular dog with training, and had actually prior to that had gotten quotes from multiple sources. The fortunate thing is the one that they liked the most was also the lowest bid of $8,500, which is much lower than Bo was actually purchased for, and that, I know that they'll be talking more, that also covers the training as well. So the discussion came up, and kind of with the backing of council, that most likely at the end of the day this will not cost the extra city funds at all because of the donations and the funds that are already set aside in a fund for this purpose, but that if we can make a commitment as a council to those funds, and then be willing to anything that wasn't made whole by the donations that we would cover in our financing, would allow the process to get started right away. And through this, I had a chance to talk to Lance, and the value of this Bo being here is just, we can't even put into words for what he does, not only on the crime side, but also the education and with children, and the visits that he has with the schools and with kids, and the way that the dog actually helps soothe at bad scenes for kids. And actually an interesting story of where sometimes the little children won't talk to an officer and tell them what happened, but they'll definitely talk to the dog and tell them everything. So it's definitely a value to it. Probably can't even value probably one of our most valuable resources dollar-wise. And so the request would be we'd have to first waive competitive bidding, because they did actually get quotes, but it wasn't in a formal bid. But through those quotes, it was the cheapest price, and that we would just be making a commitment in the amount of $8,500. And I know they probably have some more of the specifics on it, Lance and Matt as well.
Okay.
The request, just for a little history here, with our K-9 program, the last two K-9s we had were funded by a very generous family here in Cadillac that really supported our program. They said, if you ever have a problem, come back and see us. Well, we have contacted them, and they have made the commitment that we will help you with this again. Probably the largest share of it, but we can't do it all. But we don't have that number yet. We also have Arby's has started a fundraiser for the department that they started on their own. It's a paper dog cutout, where if you want to support the program, you give a donation, and they have the paper dogs cut out. I think there's different levels, different colors for what your donation is. You get to put your name on it and post it. And Arby's is quite hopeful that's going to bring in a pretty large amount of money as well. And then we have one of the industries here in town that also has spoken up and said, we'd like to do something to support you, but the problem that we have is we don't want to know what those numbers are at this point. And I also do have some money in a forfeiture account that could be used for this as well. So as Councilman Stevens had said, the dog that we looked at, and Lance can tell you more about that particular animal that we looked at, was from Mid-Michigan Kennels, and the purchase of the dog and the training was $8,500. The next place we looked was Oakland Police Academy. That was $12,000. They have a canine program, and then Northern Michigan Canine came in also at $12,000. So I'm relatively confident that between the fundraising efforts and the money we have in our forfeiture account, we'll probably account for all of that when those funds come in. We just don't know exactly what they are at this point. And the program starts February 25th. February 25th is when the next canine training program starts. And so what we're looking for is the commitment to allow us to be able to know that we'll have the funds and purchase a new dog and do the training. And then as we raise funds and donations coming from the community, that will be put back into the account where that comes from. So you want to talk a little bit about the dog?
Sure. I'm not quite the eloquent speaker that most of the community members that went before me am, so bear with me. Again, I've been down to Mid-Michigan Kennels twice now. As Councilman Stevens had said, it's kind of an interview process with a dog. Certain elements that we're looking for in a canine unit, specifically for our department. Specific needs that this community has for a canine is going to be different than a police department such as Detroit. The dog that I've been working with that I believe is going to be a strong candidate for our department is an 18-month-old Belgian Malinois named Sage. He had the characteristics that I was looking for in a canine partner. Social, yet has plenty of drive to do the jobs that we need it to do. A little bit about Mid-Michigan Kennels. I've worked with owner-trainer Mike Morgan there on several occasions. I'm familiar with several of the canines that he's put out in northern Michigan several years down the road. I've seen the professionalism that he exhibits as an owner and trainer. I've seen the quality of product that he's putting out there on the streets, and I believe that it's a good fit for our department.
And you've actually, how many years now you've been working, you worked with Bo?
I've been working with Bo for the last 5 years. She was 10 and a half years old when she passed away, which is, it's an incredible amount of service time for a police dog. She served our community very well, and out of several trainings that I've been to, I've had numerous master trainers comment on the abilities that she possessed, and told me point blank that she was above most that were out there, which is good to hear about something that you spend that much time, effort, and energy on. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming, both of you, tonight, Matt and Lance, and Art for helping move this forward quickly, and as well as staff. Anything else, Marcus, that we need to know prior to voting on this, and or after that, any questions from our council board?
Just to summarize the action before you this evening, there's apparently a timing situation with respect to the training beginning in February, and the desire for the specific animal that our officers essentially have interviewed. What you'd be doing tonight is authorizing the expenditure in the full amount, of which Captain Wolfowler mentioned will be reimbursed to some degree, hopefully to the full degree through outside funding sources. We just don't know yet, since the commitments have not yet come in. But this would provide us with the ability of acquiring the specific canine unit that has been interviewed after quotations were received.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council before we consider what looks to be a two-step process here?
I just got one question, Lance. You said it was 19 months old?
Yes, he was 18 months old when I was down there.
Is that the normal time when you pick up a dog?
Yeah, there's-
Are they about a year and a half? Or are
Typically,
they?
a window between 15 months old and 2 years old is typically when they're put into police service.
Personally, I think I kind of look at this a little bit like Owen does. It's an intangible asset, meaning that you really can't put a value on it because how many people would have continued to run and you would have been chasing them, but they saw the dog and they knew that they couldn't get to the end of the property in less than 3 seconds. So, no, I mean, I see this as any other piece of equipment. It enhances your job, makes you more productive. There's just no question in my mind.
Okay, any other comments from council?
Only comment is it sounds like you've done a lot of work already to try to, determine what dog you want and how to fund it. And I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the support from the folks in the community and beyond the community, it looks like, to help fund this. That's really neat. It is hard for us to come up with that much extra money, in a tight budget year. So that's nice to see.
Okay, anything else from anyone up here in the council? I appreciate the police coming forward quickly and having a plan, and glad to hear that's in place. I'm ready to pop this through if everyone else is. I could entertain the first motion at this point.
We have to separate those. I'll make a motion that we waive competitive bidding with the understanding that they did get informal quotes and have 3 of those.
And they also have timing issues.
And the fact that it is timing and it is a very...
And it is a professional
I
service.
was just going to say professional service.
Okay.
Support.
We have a motion and support to waive competitive bidding with some explanation. Any further comments? Hearing none, we have a motion and support. Could we vote on this, please, Chris?
Councilmember Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Barnett?
Yes. Motion carried. All right, we can entertain the actual item at this point, or the purchase, or at least the funding for the purchase if everything goes right. Who would like to make that motion as well?
I'll make a motion that we award the purchase of the new dog to the lowest quoting firm, which is Mid-Michigan Kennels, in the amount of $8,500.
Support.
All right.
But is Sage going to be his, are you keeping the name, or is?
I believe it. He answers to it already. I'm not going to throw too many curveballs at him currently.
Is it Stage or Sage?
Sage.
Sage.
So the community can be looking forward to Sage's arrival.
At this point, yes.
That's my dog's middle name.
Oh, is it?
Because we couldn't decide on that or another name, so his name is Jasper Sage.
Okay, there's a motion from Art, and support is supported here? Yep. Okay, thank you both for that. And without further ado, and the door opening for a new member of our law enforcement community, can we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Melama?
Yes.
Mayor Barnett?
Yes. Motion passed. Congratulations. Good luck with the new addition.
Thank
I
you.
would love a visit.
You're welcome.
Can you bring him to council one day?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, if I could just ask a question, when do we get the animal? When do we get Sage?
February 25 begins school. I can get in contact with Mike if he's at a point in his training where he'd be able to turn him over to me before that school begins. I'll definitely look into that.
Okay.
So can he be the union representative in negotiations?
Yeah, for the canine.
Yeah, for the canine.
For all the dogs.
Yeah, right, just shakes his head no.
No.
He can speak.
I'd like to thank the community also for their support. It's been overwhelming, not only in the past week, but since I've been a canine handler. It's nice to have a community that embraces the program the way that they do, and I really feel that they have a vested interest in the program also.
Okay, thank you for having a vested interest. I know it's a lot of work extra that you don't always get paid for, and it's a commitment. Thanks for your passion, and Matt as well. Good luck to you. Well, that's our added item, and a positive one. Hopefully these are all positive tonight. Next up, Marcus, you want to just keep us?
Yes, sir. Related items, including a public hearing. There was never any formal action up or down by City Council with respect to those items, which is one of the reasons why the City Attorney would like at perhaps our next council meeting to have it come back for that formal action to take place. And Mike, if you could give us a quick update as to what those two items were, that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, the first one was a proposed amendment to Section 1219 of the City Code. That amendment is necessary because it would add low-income persons and families to those classes of housing that would then be eligible for a tax exemption or also a payment in lieu of taxes. And so that's the first step to be taken, because if you don't add that, then there's no sense in bringing up Cadillac Shores, which is a request then for a payment in lieu of taxes. And the only way you can do that is by amending your code to add that class of housing. So the council did not take action on this previously, so it's hanging out there. You've held your public hearing. So I would recommend that you put it on your next agenda and take action on it one way or another, up or down. If the amendment to Section 1219 were to pass, then you could address the specific request from Cadillac Shores for the payment in lieu of taxes, and by adopting the subsequent ordinance approving such a payment, defining sort of the terms and the scope of it.
Okay, I'm just curious, but this is placed on our agenda. We did have it on the agenda, and we will let it go through without any vote. I presumed it was going to go to sleep, but...
Right, no action really basically means it doesn't move forward.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that there was a public hearing and there was no vote at all taken, no action was taken. So you're right. I mean, you could leave it hanging out there one way or another and never take action on it again. Not my preference. I like to have either, yes, I mean, either there's a motion to approve it and it fails, at which point it's been decided, or there's a motion to approve it and it passes and then it's approved. Leaving it out there hanging one way or another, let's suppose in 6 months somebody says, well, I think we should put this back on the agenda. You've held a public hearing. Now the question becomes, is there too much of a lapse of time in between the public hearing and the actual vote on the matter, where you'd have to start all over again with the public hearing notices? That's sort of the problem you run into.
Was there, I remember one of the concerns at the November 19th meeting was the timing, and we were told that, because we were concerned of having the two public hearings together, because the one has a 20-day period, and we were told that they were going to be applying to the MSHDA board in December, and that we basically needed to do it then, or that as they termed it, the deal could fall through if it wasn't dealt with in December. So are we even sure if they, assuming they were being straightforward with us, that they've probably already applied, and is it regardless, too late anyhow to address this in reference to that. I think a lot of information wasn't provided because we were rushed trying to accommodate them. We didn't even have packets, which I was accustomed to with past pilots. We get big binders with all the data, and I know council members requested information, and basically we got one page, and it didn't even allow staff really a lot of research time. But I'm just questioning if we even need to act on it, if the deal has fallen through, or if the deal with the rate too, that they said if it's a deal breaker if we don't give them this one rate. So is it, I know over the holidays I even communicated, I thought it was a done deal unless it was another request that came forward.
The representative from First Housing Corporation did inquire with me if the council would be reconsidering or having this request eventually back on their agenda. Given it was after the city attorney had advised that we need to close it one way or another, I did mention that it would likely be coming back at some point, perhaps in February, after city council first had this opportunity just to retouch the item again. I know he is here this evening. I don't know if council has any desire to ask any direct questions at this time. I don't have any additional information with respect to their program that hasn't already been shared. I do believe through talking with our development director that something was filed with MISTA, but we don't have any details on what was and what the value was or any of those things. So.
Was there, excuse me, go ahead, T.A.
I was just thinking that whether or not that specific pilot is brought forward, I still think it's probably a good idea to amend the ordinance or to change the ordinance to include low income. I like the idea of that being one of the factors that we can consider, other than just senior or...
I kind of wondered the same thing because it seems like we danced around whether or not the pilots that we have already approved even fit the existing qualifications.
Well, two things that came out the last meeting was it almost sounded like if we add that to an ordinance, it's an automatic.
I know. See, I got really confused last time.
And that was a caution. What you're saying
is it an automatic, or do you
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, there are certain areas that you can address, but the exemption itself is automatic. The question then, in terms of the payment in lieu of taxes, is set by statute at 10%. Take Cadillac Shores, for example, they've requested something less, and you can approve something less. And you can also define the length of that as well by ordinance. That's really what you're doing. As to the code section, you're right, in as much as if you don't amend the code first, you don't even get to Cadillac Shores request. So the first step is, does the city want to amend the code? And whether or not you add or don't add low-income housing as a class of housing subject to the tax exemption is a policy issue, not a legal one. You certainly can do it. You don't have to do it. So it's a policy issue for the council.
I had a little bit of time during our break to sit down with our financial director and Mr. Maxwell and kind of go into this a little farther, and I think that there's some information that council needs to know ahead of time before you take any type of action. And I'll just kind of leave it at that.
I feel bad too because last meeting...
Just so the council's aware, I'm not suggesting that you take action on this tonight because frankly, the way that it's been left out there and then put on the agenda, I don't think it's appropriate for the council to take action tonight. Well, I think what the city manager is suggesting, what I am suggesting, is that it be placed on your next agenda for that action if you're going to take it.
I think last we were asking some questions last time, And I think we all felt that if there was no vote, it was a dead item. Otherwise, I could have made a motion one way or the other, and then it sounds like it wouldn't be coming back up. Is the frustrating. I feel bad that I hadn't done that if I had been aware that that this could come up again, but.
Okay, that you were
I'm
not.
willing to, consider closing that loop, I guess.
What I had asked for, I guess, 2 probably meetings ago was just the books from if it's a public-private partnership, what are the profits being made from the private side? I think we need to know that before we approve this or deny it. And prior developments, there was a lot of keen eyes laid on developers' profits, and it played a part. I have not seen that part of this equation. It's not been forthcoming. I guess I'm not sure why, but I would like to see that prior to any vote. I wish we would have known there was a need for closure. We could have closed it that evening, fair or unfair. I know we didn't have a full council that night, and it sure appeared to have the view of a stalemate.
Well, from that aspect, I mean, there was no action. There was no motion. There was no support. And so any member of the council can either take it up or you cannot. My personal preference is you have a vote on it, up or down, and that way it's taken care of. If this issue comes up again, we know then you have to start over, which is you're going to hold a public hearing. You're going to draft the appropriate resolution and ordinance to make that change. The way these things end up getting hung out there somewhere is that 6 months down the road, somebody does want to amend the code, and now you have to decide, well, is there too much of a lapse of time between the public hearing that you held on this issue and whether somebody actually does bring it up? For example, what's to stop a council member in 6 months to say, I move to approve resolution such and such amending code 1219? We've held the public hearing, and now you're going to vote on it. So, that's sort of the confusion that can cause by just leaving it out there.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the city attorney had mentioned, especially since, and again, you just said it a second ago, especially since we had a public hearing introducing an ordinance. I know that there's been other occasions in the past where we've taken no action on items, but they've been items of a different sort without there being an ordinance proposed and or a public hearing associated with it. So that's the difference in this instance.
May I ask what the driving force was to put it back on the agenda tonight?
As previously mentioned, just so that we can get some clarity.
And that was something that was available to us at the first juncture of this possible vote and didn't occur.
Correct.
But now, I guess for future reference too, so let's just say I had made which I now am finding I erred, if I would have made a motion to deny and there wasn't through, and it didn't pass, or well, actually if it passed or didn't pass, just so we as a board know, so that could have changed somebody bringing it up at a later date?
Well, really, those are best done in the affirmatives rather than the negative, although you could do the negative. Usually it's a motion to approve.
Right, and that's what I was
being... fails for either a lack of majority, right? So if 2 people vote for it, 3 people vote against it, it fails. That's the end of it.
But I think Councilmember Stevens, you're asking, could that at some point later come back?
Yeah, I was just more curious if it's the public hearing part. Let's say it had failed. They probably could still bring it up in 4 months, or you're saying if it's a vote no, then they can't?
I'm saying at that point, I would say that you've got to start over again, go through the public hearing process on a new ordinance. That ordinance, that resolution failed, it was not adopted, and so now you're going to start over.
Okay.
But my problem with it is only, I don't know where the council was at the last meeting. I realize nobody brought this up, And if you want, you can leave it hanging out there indefinitely. But there was no action one way or another. You held a public hearing, we published notice of that public hearing, and nothing happened then. So my personal preference is to get some closure to that, just so it's definitive and everybody knows what happened. Now, you can treat it as if you're going to leave it out there and take no action on it. You're not forced to take any action. So if nobody wants to take any action, you can leave it the way it is.
The public hearing will become stale or more stale, and
yes,
it would.
But I would also say that if you, for example, if you're not inclined to amend the code, then you could take that action to say we're not going to add this class of housing. But it's up to council.
Okay. I suppose on the positive side for having it come back, there is the ability to have all 5 of us vote, and that is the representation of the public in our city.
But that also becomes a avenue down the road, is do we not, because of absences, do we not deal with public hearings on those times for that purpose? You know?
Well, it's a lesson learned for those that would have voted no on this at the last hearing, and to provide the closure that's being discussed tonight.
The whole thing is hard to add up, though. I still get confused because one minute we're told it's really not going to affect taxes. Next minute, if they don't get this, they're not going to be able to do repairs. So if it's not affecting taxes really, or not this year, and it may, I just don't see a lot of projects not being, if it's such a tiny amount, I don't understand why projects aren't going to be able to get done. Unless we're not, it's hard to even know. We have not really got anything concrete in our hands to say, here it is. And one minute we're being told it's kind of like a wash, we're not really going to lose any funds. So then, why is this going to be the reason that projects get done or not? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I think the point was the taxes were not going to go down that they pay, so there was no loss. But I don't know if the upside was considered, at least in that short discussion. I would just like to see the big picture, all the facts and figures on both sides, and have it open. And I think anyone voting for this would want to have that information so that they would know who we're having a private and public partnership with. So no action tonight. Anyone else with any other comments regarding the update on payment in lieu of taxes requested by First Housing Corp. Cadillac Shores project?
I would like to say that if it does come back up on the agenda, either the first or the second meeting in February, that we would have all of the information, including the information that you've discussed with the finance officer, and that Mr. Maxwell has brought to our attention in the distribution of the funds of the pilot, or the existing pilot.
I agree.
Okay. Was there any update on that, the issues that Mr. Maxwell brought up regarding pilots that the council needs to be aware of at this point?
It would take a great deal of time. I think probably maybe it'd be better handled in another way, maybe through written communications to you.
Okay.
On the ramifications and what we...
There is an update?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to see that, Marcus, if there's going to be something discussed related to how pilots have been dealt with in the past. Anybody else, anything else on the Cadillac Shores request regarding a payment in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as a pilot?
Let's move on.
Mr. Petcher, looks like
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The next item is to set a capital improvement program work session in advance of our next council meeting for 5:15 on February 4th.
Okay, can we entertain a motion at this point?
So moved.
And the support?
Support.
All right, any discussion on our work session for a capital improvement program, CIP?
Do you think it's going to be a 1 or a 2 I don't know if you would know, is it going to be a case where
It'll
we
definitely
probably,
be a 1 or a 2.
a 1 or a
session
2?
thing, but, it just depends on, I think it'll be whatever the council wishes when we get towards the end of that first night. Then we'll kind of just gauge where we are, and we'll be certainly available for another one before we would ask you to just approve it at your wishes. So it'll just, that's how we've done it in the past. We can set 2 probably if you want right
That's
away.
okay, I,
Typically, we've just
Yeah.
said at the end of that one, if it looks like we need more time, just set another one that night for the next meeting, so.
I may not be able, but I think you should still go forward with it, but I may not be able to be there, but I can just get an update.
You can stop
after.
in too, if you want, so.
Just what, for the first meeting or the entire night?
The first.
Okay.
I will have to, I just switched some things on that time, so I'll see.
Okay. We do have a motion and support, I believe. Any other discussion about the CIP work session as proposed? Hearing none, Chris, could you give us a roll call?
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Barnett.
Yes. Motion carried. So put that on your calendars. Public is welcome. Marcus, it looks like you have one remaining letter, D.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The next item is a result of the relatively recently approved collective bargaining agreement with our fire department, with the IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters. We need to file the official paperwork for our healthcare savings program, and this now adds that group to the program.
Okay, any discussion regarding this prior to motion?
And I'm assuming this is all, nothing's changed from the contract, and it's just taking what we approved in the contract?
Correct.
Any questions, any comments?
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the new participation agreement for the MERS Healthcare Savings Program to include the members of the International Association of Firefighters, Local Union 704.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any discussion now? Hearing none. Chris, could we please have a roll call? Linda, did you want to tell us anything tonight? No. You got moved into the room here, so you're good? Sorry about that. Chris, we're ready to vote, I believe.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Spelman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnett.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. No items under the ordinances and resolutions, either introduction or adoption. Looks like we have one board and commission set of, in this case, not minutes, but an annual report. Anything about the Historic District annual report?
I just wanted to briefly mention and give kudos to the commission as well as to Jerry Adams, who's the staff liaison, that the report document is really a wonderful tool. It is in its entirety in the back of your packet. It includes a whole host of information, including the names of obviously those that are on the commission, their attendance records, various activity applications that they've processed, website updates and newsletter information. And we just encourage everyone in your spare time to take a peek.
Thank you. Minutes of boards and commissions. Looks like we've got 3 sets of Board of Commissioner meetings, October 17th, November 7th, and the 21st. And also the CWTA meetings held on November 8th and December 27th. The CW Airport Authority, which was December 18th. Minutes from the Cadillac Planning Commission, which I believe was at a special time, November 26th. And I might be wrong on that. And also minutes of the Court Hill Historic District Commission from meetings, a meeting held on December 10th. Anything newsworthy, noteworthy, or for our attention?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This, by the way, is probably a great example of why I would love to be able to get all these minutes archived online and then just reference it as a part of the city council meeting of the new minutes that have been posted. Because takes a lot of paper and adds a lot of bulk to the packets. But I just did want to briefly mention, and I think it came up once before with respect to the CWTA, the closure of their transfer facility, and that it was mentioned that they were going to have an alternative space located. And I don't recall if I provided that detail, but it is in the minutes. And this is with respect to the regional transfer spot is now going to be at the Main Street Cafe. They used to have their own facility in Buckley, but now that place has been closed, and the Main Street Cafe in Buckley is now a place where people can pick up the bus. So.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to proceed to public comments unless anyone has any other discussion on those minutes. Don't hear any. So I will open the room back up to public comments or public comment, since we've got one citizen left who doesn't look very ready, willing, and able. Any comments from the public tonight? No comment. Good answer. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell, for coming tonight. You do get the award for staying in the room the longest tonight. And with that, I'm going to close public comment. We have no tabled items. We do have good of the order. And I'll swing over with Mr. Petcha to start that off, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I would like to give my thanks to our Public Works crew, the one and only crew that's responsible for maintaining all of our roadways and sidewalks, and also the Keith McKellop Trail. I would like to encourage folks that may not necessarily know that the trail is being maintained this winter. It is accessible to most likely walkers. I'm not sure if you're able to really run on it given perhaps ice and snow conditions. That's what I wanted to mention, especially given its proximity to the lake. We're not treating it with any sort of chemicals to melt ice, so it is somewhat slippery. We do have signage posted accordingly, but please feel free to use it. Lastly, I wanted to mention we circulated a downtown area sidewalk guide for maintaining your sidewalk. Certainly it goes across the board throughout the whole city that it is the individual property owners or leaseors' responsibility to maintain the sidewalk in front of your home or business. With respect to the downtown specifically, we do have the ability of actually removing the snow from the sidewalk. It just needs to be positioned away from streetlights and trees and other things. It has to be placed basically sort of in the middle where it's barrier free. While that might create an issue for perhaps a day for parallel parkers, it'll be removed as soon as we have our crew out there taking the snow out, and they'll be able to get in there with their equipment overnight and remove the snow. So.
Thank you very much. Mr. Councilmember Malama.
Just a couple announcements here. February 22nd, which is a Friday, at the Career Technical Center, there is going to be a talent summit, and it's going to be on advanced manufacturing needs, and it'll be held out at the Career Tech Center, so please take a note of that. Manufacturers, make your needs known. And also coming up, we met with our Manufacturers Association. We have the University of Michigan who is doing the study on the grant that we have secured. And it's called West Michigan Innovation Center is the name, and what we're looking at. There will be a town hall meeting at CTC coming up probably in the first part of February. I don't have a date yet. It hasn't been set unless Mr. Adams knows, but we're working very, very close. We had a presentation at our manufacturers meeting, and our manufacturers were very, very enthusiastic about it, and it's well received through our industrial park, and we'll be bringing that publicly to people's attention.
Thank you.
Oh, and Mayor, I was going to say Mayor Blanchard. Excuse me. Mayor Barnett was there, and he was in attendance, and I'm sure he was
Very impressed.
very impressed.
Thank you for putting that together. It's what we're hearing on the street is jobs, 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 and what are we doing? We are moving forward with the plan here. Thank you, Councilmember Melma. Councilmember Stevens, you're to his right, so I'm going to anoint you as the next
one.
Go to the order.
Just wanted to say Happy New Year. It seems crazy saying that, but since we seen all of you, Happy New Year, and I'm excited for 2013. I still look back in 2012, we had some great successes that probably gets overlooked. I just really credit Owen and the whole staff with and the council for our budget. Last year's budget, what we ended up, I think, was pretty amazing when we hear federal governments and state governments and other local governments what's going on. And I think everybody, as I mentioned last time, it's a team effort, and that was a big success. And unfortunately, we started 2013 with a couple tragedies, but it